As Talk Design is a sponsor of the AIA Austin Homes Tour, I thought I'd take an opportunity to talk to a good friend of mine. He's the world's #1 marketing coach for architects. Richard Petrie, thank you for coming on the show. And I'd love you to just tell us what you do for architects. Take it away, man.
All right. Well, basically, what we do, architects, we do get interior designers come in and landscape architects as well. But primarily, it's about winning better projects. So, what I've discovered after the last 12, 13 years of working with architects and designers is that you're only as good as the projects you can win. So, I'll often ask people, out of 10, how good are you at what you do? And if someone says, I'm an 8 out of 10, then I'll say, all right, well, how good are the projects that you're winning? And they might often say 5 or 6 or 4, out of 10. And then I'll say, how good is the income that you're earning out of 10? If 10 is the most you could possibly earn, and they might go 4, 5, 6. But it's usually, both those numbers are usually below the value that they're delivering. And so what I just look to do is not get them earning 10 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 projects if they're an 8 out of 10 architect. But the goal is, if you're an 8 out of 10 architect, you want 8 out of 10 projects so that you can express yourself, and you want 8 out of 10 income, and that's only fair. And most people are below that on both of those numbers. So all we really do is, I think a lot of it is, once you get into it, it's common sense, but not commonly available sense. So, we just help people lift their projects, and with their, when you get better projects, you get better fees. And when you get better fees, you tend to have a bit more fun doing better projects, and you can win more awards. And that's basically it.
Well, Richard, testament to you guys. I've been with the AMI, or Architects Marketing Institute, for, goodness, 4 years, I think it is. And
seems like a lot longer.
It feels a lot longer.
Yeah.
But absolute proof to what you do works, and not just for myself. I've seen it work for many, many others. So thanks for joining us here. And well, hope to get you on one of our Feast Experience tours, which will be coming up.
Well, I'm just looking at your website. Is it feastexperiences.us?
It is.
I was trying to work out, what is it? Is it an eating tour around Texas, or is it a design going around fancy houses, looking at fancy houses around Austin, Texas, or is it hanging out with fancy designers and really cool people? And from what I can work out, it looks like it's all three, and maybe even a little bit more. I quite like. I got to admit.
Well, I'm glad you've worked out that much. The one in Austin, Texas, is a feast experience, and it's feast for the soul as much as it's a feast for the belly.
Right.
I partnered with Talk Design Podcast with Feast Experiences because they are experiential tour specialists. And yes, they do a lot with food, but they go well beyond that. So when coming to Austin, I wanted to put together something that used my background of contacts and people that I knew from the insider run of time on the podcast, lots of visits to America, etc. So we partnered up, and what we're going to do is offer a 5-day experience. And in that 5-day experience, we're going to be, having private meetings with people like Fern Santini, Larry Speck,
Right.
Icon 3 Build, as well as touring 9 homes that will be open, and will be VIPs with the AIA Austin.
Wow.
And in that, taking that, elevating it with food, because, as you know, just about everybody lives in a house or an apartment or a car, and everybody eats, like everybody eats. And so elevating the two experiences. So we're going to look at these world's best homes in Austin with world's best architects and Austin's, great interior designers and things.
Yeah.
And then we are also going to have culinary delights from, America's, Austin's, and Texas's best chefs. So we're going to take in those experiences as well and open up that network, have a deep dive into what happens with design, meet a whole bunch of architects, have lunches, dinners, etc. with these architects, and let them share their knowledge across the platform. So it's 5-day experience, end of October, and I think it's going to be something that elevates your design and your network beyond anything else you can imagine. You know, people often look on Instagram or Pinterest and they see photos and experience things that way. But you feel a home, or you feel a building, you feel a structure. It's an emotional experience, and you can only do that by being in it. And that's what we want to bring to you, as well as feed the belly and give you some amazing accommodation along the way.
Yeah, well, that I can see the photos, and the photos are amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously the architects and people like that, and the food looks all good. But I also imagine, I'm curious how many people will be in this group, touring around, going and seeing these properties, because we just did a tour around Croatia on a boat, and one of the, you think, the cities and the towns split, and Dubrovnik and all this, with all the architecture and the food. But actually, one of the cool things that we weren't expecting is the people you meet. When you're in a group like this, you meet some really interesting people who are kind of like you. Some of them are not, but you make some really good friends. So how many people will be in this?
Maximum of 16,
Right.
but
Good
somewhere
number.
around that 12 to 16 people. And we've got some co-hosts as well. So we've got Mary, who is a branding and movie maker, who's from America. She'll be co-hosting, and Sam from Feast Experiences as well. Sam is a long-term tour organizer, and also has a background in film and television, and has a huge culinary background as well. So he's worked in all these things before. And so that was why I chose them to partner with for this, because of their depth of experience, and because of the kind of people that they're used to dealing with. This is an elevated experience. This is something that goes to way more than sitting in a minibus and turning up at a property. It's a lot deeper than that. And as you say, the connections and the contacts that you make from going and visiting, but the connections and contacts you make from those people that will be on the tour will be life-changing as well.
Yeah, and what you learn, because you're surrounded by like some top-notch people. So getting access to, I imagine, these people like yourself and some of the others, you sit there, talk with them. Through osmosis, there'd be a lot of insights and design expertise that's just picked up just hanging around you guys for 5 days. And Austin, probably my favorite US city. It's the coolest city of them all, really. And there was, I think there's, I'm not sure if it's their logo or their soundbite, but it's, where hippies and cowboys get along.
That one, and keep Austin weird.
Yeah, that's right. It's a little bit weird. Yeah.
We'll be
that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah, we'll be experiencing a lot of different points around Austin as well, and mixing with quite a few locals, etc. The whole thing of Austin is it's the home ground of where rock and roll and country music came together.
Right.
And in that, it's also where the touring kit for all the southern bands in America is stored. So music, if you're a busker on the street in Austin, you're probably a world-class musician or whatever to even get a busking license.
Yeah.
And then food-wise, it's really diverse. You've got your Tex-Mex, your Southwestern, you've got your Mexican food, you've got all those influences, and the barbecue. So you've got this real melting pot of food. Yeah. And back in the day in Austin City, there was a club which was known as back to the Armadillo, And the Armadillo was the first place that rock and roll and country came together and became that genre and that mix. And it really elevated how both those genres of music were seen. It's got a lot of diversity. It's a wealthy city. So then that means that the actual look of the city, the way it presents itself, the way the architecture presents itself, all those things are elevated. And it's not a huge city either. But I can imagine we'll have a few nights at the Continental Club and down on Rainy Street and places like that experiencing it. And then the offbeat places that most people wouldn't know about. The last day of the tour we'll be in Texas Hill Country, and we'll be in a private event. And we'll have a few invitees plus the tour guests. And we will be doing a lunch and discussions and learnings. And then we'll be going on for a dinner. And then we will just wrap it all together and tie it in a bow as such. And then part ways that night back to hotels or back to the hotel. And then from that, everybody can disperse and go and do their things. And on one of the early days in the tour, me being sponsored by Stetson hats, I'm going to take people, and I had a background, of course, in fashion design for many years before I took into the world of, the built structure. I'm going to take people on a boot shopping and hat shopping experience for an afternoon as well. Yeah, so a few fun things.
And Austin being Austin, like you say, it's where a whole lot of things collide and meet. And there was the Formula One there a few years ago. I don't know if it's there every year.
It's there every year. It's the only purpose-built Formula One track in America, and that race will be held in October as well.
Right. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, when I was there, I went into a suit. This is a quick little story, but speaking of all sorts of people being in Austin, I bumped into two famous people in Austin, and that's the thing you might
apart from yourself.
Well, apart from me, and one I was in the Superdrug. Is it Superdrug or one of those sort of?
Yep.
And I was in there, and there was this huge selection of toothbrushes, and I was speaking to this guy and going, "Oh my goodness, there's too many toothbrushes to choose from." And we're chatting away about how many toothbrushes there were, and I never really looked at them. And then I walked around and looked back, and it was Bernie Ecclestone, the guy that used to own
Formula One.
I was having a chat to him about toothbrushes, and he was there with his very attractive South American girlfriend or wife shopping. And the other one was I was in a restaurant, and sitting outside in the quiet area was this guy in a yellow T-shirt, fit-looking guy. And walked past him. I thought, is that? Yes, it is. It's Lance Armstrong. So
of course, he's an Austin local.
That's it. So you do bump into. So it'd be interesting to know on your tour how many famous people you guys bump into.
Well, certainly report back, but obviously it's Matthew McConaughey's home base as well, and Dell Computers home base, and Teslas are produced there as well, like the Cybertruck's produced in Austin.
All right, saw a few of those in San Francisco a couple of days ago. Yeah.
There's a lot that goes on in Austin, and Willie Nelson, of course, and there's Willie Nelson Boulevard for those country music fans. And then the other thing that's on in October, if you really want the trifecta of coming on our tour and you've got time to burn and plenty of fun to be had, you can get the Formula One on one weekend, and that'll be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. The final will be on Sunday. And then you can also get the last weekend of the Austin City Limits Festival, which Austin City Limits Festival is the TV show of Austin City Limits, the longest running music television program that's ever been produced. So it's produced at the Moody Theatre. There is a chance that you could get tickets to go and see a show being made in the Moody Theatre as well. And then you've got the actual festival will be held in Zinkler Park in October as well, over a Friday, Saturday, Sunday as well. So the trifecta is getting all three, is doing each one of those and coming with us on tour at the last one. We're the outlier. We're at the end of the month. It's a fabulous town, a lot going on, very vibrant, full of great people, great architecture and great food. And we're going to capitalize on that with our feast experience.
Awesome. I'm going to check my calendar for October. I know I've got something month before, month after, but sounds really good. I was going to say one other thing. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, it was really good.
Awesome, man.
No, it sounds great. And I was going to say, one thing I was going to say was we're all going to be dead soon. Right? give it another 30 or 40 or 50 years, we're all going to be gone. So I'm going through a phase of my life where it's a case of I've just come back from a month in Italy, a month in Croatia, and a couple of weeks in the US. And my wife has triggered this because her mother got Alzheimer's, unfortunately, last year and passed away. And I think we're at the age where you're thinking, well, we're here for a good time, not a long time. It's about gathering, great life experiences while we're young enough and have enough money to do these things. And why not? I mean, there's no point waiting for 20 or 30 years for something to change. And so this type of activity is the type of thing that certainly fits on my bucket list of why not?
Yes.
Why not? It'll
I'm
be
with you.
cool.
I think that these things, like as you get older in life, and even if you're
Mm.
younger, if you can afford to do these things, you start to
Oh, yeah.
mix with people who will elevate the level of what you do. It's one thing to be, say, in your 20s or 30s and come on a tour like this, and you kind of go, oh, well, there's a few older people and all the rest. Those older people have got a lot of purpose in life and a lot of learnings and all the rest.
Yeah, yeah.
The conversations you have with them will
Yep.
elevate what you do. I know for many years I worked in the clothing industry, and when I was working in that, I flew everywhere business class. And in flying business class everywhere,
Yeah.
the people I sat next to
Yeah.
made contacts that I would have never made before,
Yep.
and or never had the opportunity to meet. And
Yes.
in doing that, I got so many elevated experiences and opened my network of people to such a high elevation that I
Mm.
have still to this day around the world. And that was one of my reasons when I started Talk Design. I went, I've got all these absolutely incredible people that I've met over the years that I've stayed in contact with, and I could have them on the show. And they
Yeah.
could talk about way more than just design. They could talk about how to use creativity, how business works, all these other things. And when you become part of a group like that, they accept you as part of a group like that. And
Mm.
then it elevates it. So you're around people that go, oh, okay, you're one of us.
Mm.
Even if you're younger or older, doesn't really matter. Age isn't the barrier. It's
Mm.
the keys to the club or the car that makes the difference.
Well, it's connecting with people who are where you want to be as well, isn't it?
Yes.
There's that saying you learn, and I don't know if it's true, but when I looked at it, I thought it probably is true. You learn plus or minus 10% of the 4 to 5 people you spend the most time with. So
Mm.
while it's not all about money, I mean, but that probably applies to anything. Your life will have as many rich experiences as the 4 to 5 people you spend the
Yes.
most time with. So surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do, um,
And do
and
it.
and go and do it, because we're all here for a good time, not a long time. So
Yep.
sounds really cool. And this is the
Awesome,
type of
Richard.
thing that we need to be filling our life with
Yes. Yes. While we can. While we can.
before we go to the
Absolutely.
next level, whatever that is.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. I look forward to having some time in Texas with you. Let's get you there.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. You can go, Richard.
Okay. All right. I've got with me Adrian Ramsey here in a Stetson. He's actually sponsored by Stetson, which is very cool. How many architects get sponsored by product endorsers? Well, the reason he gets sponsored is he's a little bit special in a number of ways. He's based in Queensland, around the Sunshine Coast in Australia. He's a designer. First and foremost, he's a designer.
Yeah.
He has a podcast where he's done over 200 episodes. Some of them have included me. He's a TV host for Dream Home Revealed, which is, some of you may have seen, particularly if you're in Australia. I'm not sure if they sold it outside Australia, but it's
Yep.
becoming reasonably well known there. He is also speaker at conferences about designers, architects, and the relationship between those, and how to manage those. He's a very good, almost like a psychologist, I would say. He's a very keen psychologist on the interaction between people. and host of something which is architectural tours. I know he's got one coming up soon, which I'm going to ask him about. And the final thing is he's also a member of our marketing program. So as well as doing a whole lot of good stuff, I've been lucky enough to be connected with Adrian for about 4 or 5 years now. And it's been a lot of fun. So how do you fit all that stuff in? That is, most architects are overwhelmed as it is. Listening to your schedule, how does that work?
Well, thanks for the beautiful intro, mate. Look, seriously, busy people get things done. I think that's one of the key points. Scheduling my day and making sure that I get the priorities in that make the difference for me and for my clients. So, look, I start at 5 a.m. and
Yeah, but that's usually going out for a surf, isn't it?
Well, if I can sneak a surf in, there's a couple of days a week that are easily to do a surf. So generally Mondays and Saturdays and Sundays are my surf days. Tuesdays, I have a buddy group that I meet with, who's a global buddy group, and we're known as the Whisperers, and we are all land whisperers and different architects from all around the world. And then on Wednesdays, I'm at 5 a.m. I'm at the AMI Architects Marketing Institute Mastermind Group, which takes me through till about 6 a.m. And then the rest, I usually record podcasts on a Thursday morning is my general morning, which is around 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. I start that podcast recording. And then I take my daughter to school often as well, do that. And then I get back to the studio and get my head down and my ass up and get working. Now, 3 to 4 days of every month, I'm shooting for Dream Homes Revealed as well. So that means I'm somewhere around Queensland, and we've got, back-to-back schedule for those days. And right. So that on those nights, I tend to get back to my hotel room, or if I go home and I lock myself in the studio room and just get on top of what needs to be done to keep that schedule up to date. We only take 4 clients, maybe 5 in a year. So that's very deliberate action. We used to take a lot more, but now it's a very deliberate action. And, having a niched design outcome is the other thing.
Yeah, okay. So having worked with architects for the last 12 or 13 years, I would say the average architect would probably do 10 to 12 if they're a one-man band or one-woman band, 10 to 12 projects per year. Some do more, some do less. And if they're a multi-person firm, so doing 4 or 5 is quite discerning. They're obviously bigger projects, maybe a bit more design focused. So I like that. I mean, when we're trying to get people up to where we're doing just really good projects, 4 to 5 is kind of the goal. So you're
sitting in the spot.
Yeah, that's the spot to go to if you can for most people. Not everybody, but for most people, that's a really good spot. But you have to be charging decent fees and doing really good projects.
Yeah, 100%. Look, one of the things that I certainly became very aware of is that we would spread ourselves very thin. Architecture is a really funny business. All this designers, it ebbs and flows, and people all move at different speeds. So, having a good understanding of how you're going to do your invoicing so that you can smooth some of that out is really critical. But the other part is finding great clients that you work with. My whole view of all of that changed from the podcast, actually, which was Jeffrey Dungan from Alabama. We were chatting, and he said to me, I said to him, actually, you must have some great projects. And he said to me, it's not about great projects, it's about great people. With great people come great projects. And that was like a slap up the side of the head, that one. Yeah. I was like, oh, right. Yeah, it is. That is what it's about. And so that shifted everything. I stopped looking for great projects. I look for great people to work with. And I don't mind whether the project is big or small. But if it doesn't fit within my niche and it doesn't fit within what we're trying to schedule, then we won't take the project. We'll put it on, we might put it in the waiting list, but we won't take the project in that time if we're not going to be able to service those people, really, is the big thing.
Right.
And, like dollar-wise with projects, yes, they have to be a little more significant than they did previously. But we want a really tight relationship with the people that we are going to design for, because we've invented over the years these different things. So we have our design magic process, which is all around budgeting and understanding and getting clarity on scope of work and brief and those things. And then we have our land whispering program, which is all about how do you site this property or this home best on this property? Where are the sacred spaces? How are we going to work with that? How are we going to pull all that together? Architects and building designers, they do this thing where they fill homes with light and air. That is what they're there for, or it might be to create darkness and shade and whatever it is. But that's what we do. We take boxes and we stack them together, or circles or whatever, and we make those livable for people. So there's an art form in that, but then it's got to function, highly function for them. But the trick is to be able to bring light and air and texture into those, because then what we've backed off the back of that is what we call our emotional floor plan. And our emotional floor plan is actually how the house feels and how it nurtures you. So there's a whole level of 3 different pieces there that we pull together, and we work very closely with the builders in creating or starting the build team and making that happen as well. So right from our conceptual side, we're working in with the builder that will deliver the project. So
yeah. I like how you look at it from so many different dimensions, and I think intuitively a lot of designers would think about things emotionally, but not necessarily as deliberately as you do. So the emotional floor plan is a really interesting concept of how do you want to move as you move through the space, which is, I think a lot of architects would intuitively sort of have that in the back of their head, but yours it's part of a deliberate process. It's part of, it's not in the back of your head. It's one of the elements we need to bake in. And that brings me to, because your spaces, I've seen some of them. You've got swimming pools hanging out, almost like balconies hang off the side of the house, and you've got, all sorts of amazing things happening. You win a lot of awards, right? Yeah. A ridiculous number of awards. Now, why do you win so many awards? Why?
Well,
do you have to have swimming pools hanging off the side of the house, or
no.
Why you?
Do you know, the weird thing is for many years we wouldn't even enter awards, and not entering awards. One day I was sitting with a client, and they asked me the question. They said, "So, our friend's house won an award," and they were frothing about it. They were so excited about their friend's house winning an award, and I went, "Oh, what was it so important about it?" And they said, "Well, they live in an award-winning home." And I'm like, good call. And I went, with my kind of like attitude is we don't need to win awards to prove that we're any good.
Yeah. Do you
Our
like
clients know that we,
yeah. But
the big but was our clients would love to live in an award-winning home.
Well, some of them.
So I went, we should be entering our homes into awards so that, not so that we win the award, but so our clients do. This is a really interesting shift in my thinking, because we work so closely with our clients, like really deeply with them. And you can imagine the emotional floor plan, for example, is shifting it from my head to their head and coaching out of them what emotions it requires and it brings and it supports and it nurtures. It's their home, not mine. So in developing the emotional floor plan, it was to develop a method to get their emotions and then capture their emotions, and then how would the built structure respond to that? So when we win an award, they are winning the award.
Right.
for their vulnerability, for their ability to communicate that, for their coming on the journey of design and understanding how the light will affect them, how those things will be, for bringing them joy, for using like natural materials so it improves their health, just all these things. It's our clients who are winning the awards. And do you know what? If they didn't give us the project, we wouldn't be able to win an award.
That's right.
It's all about them. And it's lovely. I'm not saying it's not about me. It is wonderful to win an award. However, for years and years and years, I wouldn't even bother entering until that one clicked over in my head that I was winning them for them as much as for myself, and even more for them, because then they could show their friends, oh, and our house won this award.
Well, it's not just our house, like it's our heart. Because if you're doing a emotional floor plan, all the other things you're doing, you're really getting into their head. You're also getting into their heart, and you've got a system for capturing that, and that's what's important, rather than just I'm intuitive. No, you've got systematic step by step for capturing all this stuff that a lot of other people don't capture, and it's baked in. And then when you create the house, it's their head, it's their heart, it's their soul is what you've created. And so, no one's going to say this, but when that house wins an award, really it's their heart, head, and soul that has impressed everybody. But you've been skillful enough to draw it from them, and then turn it into something. Now, one of the things about great design is it's very experiential, right? And you talk about this all the time. Great design, you step into a space and you can see that it's great, but you can feel that it's something special, right? You walk into La Grada, Familiar, or any of these amazing spaces that make your heart sit, you go, oh my goodness, wow. And your whole, it's almost like your aura expands or something weird, but it's like your hair's on the back of your head. Now you are running I know you're running a tour in Austin, Texas soon, where you're going to take people through some of these like hair-raising experiences. Tell us, it's an interesting aspect, because you're based in Australia, you're running a tour of these amazing spaces in Austin, Texas. Tell us about that tour and what you try and achieve on that and what people get out of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I mean, for many years, I've traveled to really elevate my ability to bring better design to my clients. That's been a very deliberate thing of travel and getting to experience other people's great design and feel it. I like to take it one step further, and that's get to know the designer. And that was a big part of what we did with the podcast, was actually dig in deeper so that I saw it as a learning experience for myself. So from that, a few years back, I started taking, a few people with me on these tours around different parts of America. No, not just America, but in America. We'll talk about that in this case. Austin, Texas is a little bit of a favorite of mine of a town, I think, because of the melting pot of rock and roll and country music, as well as it's got a really elevated architectural society. It's a small town, see 1 million odd people, so it's easy to get around and see a lot of things. It's architecturally rich as a town as well, especially in the residential space, from hill country to lakeside to city towns to little enclaves like Tarrytown and pieces like this, beautiful neighborhoods. So you can get a real mixture in quite a close space. I think that's another key point. So I took a few people on different tours, and architects, interior designers, people who loved architecture or who were looking to design their own home, or not necessarily design it themselves, but they were looking to do a house, have a home for themselves designed. And I took a few of those people on the tours, and it gave them the opportunity to look and see and then discuss, way more than looking and seeing, and discuss with the knowledge, with either the architect who had designed it or the interior designer and myself, to discuss what that distilled into, what made it feel that way, why it was like this. Then they could take that back to whoever they were working with and put that in their brief. So highly valuable that way. So I did a few of these, and then I went, I am no tour company. I might be able to draw houses and really understand people, but I'm not a tour company. You know, the scheduling, all the mechanics of being a tour company. And again, a bit like the podcast, I went, this is something that I want to elevate. And so I found this amazing guy, Sam. And Sam is a tour company. He has Feast Experiences. And with Feast Experiences, he does a lot of culinary tours. And also he is really interested in, you know, I sort of say it this way, everybody lives in a house and everybody eats food. We're looking for the people who are passionate about living in a house and eating food. So they look at their home as a space to entertain from or a space to nourish their family. They look at it that way. That's them. It's part of their being. And I went, okay, so Sam, what can we put together? I've got an opportunity in Austin, Texas in October that I'd like to do. And he's like, yep, let's do it. Let's pull this off. So I have opened up my book of contacts, which is vast, and said, who can I bring in to give my guests a really deep experience of the art of Texas? You know, so we wanted to be able to look at that. For people who are listening, you know, the climate zones is always a really good place to start. Look at the climate zones of Austin, Texas, and then match that to the climate zones that you have wherever you live and see what the similarities are. Architecture these days is somewhat homogenized in the fact that because of modern technology, we can put a house from Palm Springs in, say, Austin, Texas, or we could put it in England. We might have to do some stuff with the roof slopes and water management and things like that, and maybe eaves, but we can take a genre and we can shift it around the world. So I looked at it first of all, and I went, well, I live on the Sunshine Coast, and Austin, Texas has 7 climate zones that match Australia to start with. So just you look at that and you go, well, Australia's a vast country. So it also has more than that across America, of course. And then when you start looking at other countries in the world, again, this shows up. Because it has lakefront, which isn't like seafront, but it is lakefront. So it does carry water. So waterfront homes and recreational type homes that are waterfront as well. It also has hill country homes, so rolling foothills and all those kinds of things. It has like your ranch style housing, as well as it has amazing apartments. One of the apartments we're going to visit on this tour is, I don't want to give too much away. Anyway, it's on the 41st floor and it looks over Lake Austin, and it's a private home of a very, very well-known architect who presents often at South by Southwest and is a professor of architecture as well. So we're going to go to his home, and he's going to open that up to our little group. And we're also going to do a city walk with him. And he's responsible for some very serious buildings that are in the Austin area. In fact, if you come in through Austin Airport, you'll be coming in through part of his work and doing that. Really interesting guy. He has an open class at UT, and that class, so he's an architectural professor. That class is the most sought after class to be in. So it's open, anybody from the university can go, of any class on the campus.
Wow.
Doesn't matter whether you're a doctor or you're doing whatever it is, that is the class that everybody wants to come to. It's oversubscribed constantly. And we have him for a whole afternoon and into the evening to.
And you go to and you get invited to his house.
Yeah. And then so we have things like that. So you're going to see these kind of elevated experiences.
Stuff you'd never get to see on your own.
No, be very rare to get anywhere near that
Well,
kind
and
of.
even hanging out with the people, I've seen the
Yeah.
presenters and the other people like yourself who are running this thing, or coming in and talking about design. You wouldn't get to sit in a room with these people unless you were hiring them, basically. And
Yeah.
and I imagine the 16 or so people who are on this tour would be some pretty amazing people in that group as well.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to bump
Well,
into.
look, I know on that group there is some architects, and there's also some developers
Oh wow.
that are in that group, and interior designers. So there is some industry type people,
Yeah.
developers.
You don't have to be a design. You could just be someone who, I'm interested in design and I'm thinking about designing an amazing house.
Yeah, I think if you
And I
if
want to
you
get some great ideas.
yes, 100%. Look, if you're thinking of designing a home, and if it's anything significant, like what we'd call either a forever home or a legacy home,
Right.
which would be the terms that would generally be used. If you're thinking of doing that, these 5 days will elevate your understanding of what you can have
Mm,
and how it can be put together and what kind of people you need to be working with to get it put together. So that's critical. You could be spending millions of dollars on a home that you
mm,
haven't built, and with that, these 5 days and investing and coming on a tour like this will
mm,
change all your thinking and
mm.
bring that elevation up and give you real perspective on the kinds of people you talk to. We'll meet with, I don't know, say up to 10 architects on this tour, and they will all be very different personalities. Finding the personality that matches your personality so that you can make magic out of that union, like out of that bond. Because if go back to that thing about great people,
Yes.
if you aren't working with somebody that you can respect, that can
Mm,
be vulnerable with you, that you can be vulnerable with,
mm,
how are you going to get an elevated home?
mm,
You're going to get what they give you,
mm,
or you're going to get everything that is you brought into that journey. And look, for people with multiple houses, that often the houses have different personalities. So if you've got a home in, say, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or you've got a home, sorry, in Aspen, or you've got a home in the Baja Peninsula. Let's say you've got one in Aspen and one in the Baja, and you live in San Francisco. So you might have a house, in Marin County or something in San Francisco, and then you might have a house in the Baja because you like to surf or you like that desert atmosphere. That home there is going to be a very different you when you go there. It's going to
mm,
be you and another part of who you want to be and be
mm,
seen as and behave like. It's
mm,
it's a bit like Richard Branson going from London to Nectar Island. They're very different, and he gets
mm,
to be he's the same person, but he gets to be a different personality in those different spaces because it affords different play and different
mm,
thinking. It gives him space. So then, and you might be in Aspen and say, well, I want to be living in, the woodsy ski mountain outdoor environment versus living in the Californian surf shack, say, environment, like where does that fit? So that's a
mm.
big part of it. So getting people to experience the feeling of those different genres of places. So we'll look at little houses as well as big houses. Um,
Right.
through the tour, but then getting the thinking so that it generates how do you, if you're an industry professional or if you are somebody who wants to have another home, a new home or another home, um, getting the thinking right so that you know how to get that team together that's
Mm,
going to create that thing that will be so much a part of you and your soul and who you are that the love will be running really deep. So
mm,
and then the joy elevates. And when the joy elevates, that what that does is it gives you a better life. You
mm,
get a bit woo-woo here, you vibrate at a higher level of consciousness, and
mm,
everything shifts when that's the case. Good design doesn't necessarily cost any more to execute than
mm,
bad design. So the time spent planning and the time spent exploring is beyond valuable. Beyond
Yeah,
valuable.
that's right. And that's not woo-woo at all. We all know we walk into different spaces and they make us feel differently. And some spaces make us feel inspired.
Yep.
Some make us feel relaxed. Some make us feel a bit depressed and,
Yep.
and not good. So
Yep.
there's no doubt that good design is good for your life and your soul and all that type of stuff. So with
We're
all
also
this,
going to feed people.
I'm
We're going to feed people on that tour as well, because as I said, it's about food as well. So we've got some of
always
the,
about food.
it's always about the food. Yeah, we've got some amazing food adventures happening throughout the tour.
Yeah.
And the last day is one of the most special ones, where we take a day out in the hill country and we'll be doing lunch and dinner. We'll have a lot of invited guests, and we'll be breaking down what we've seen and what's happened and how different things have influenced what it is. So we'll have a big sharing day, plus some exceptional food and probably a siesta, I'd imagine.
Regular siestas, right? I'm going to check my calendar for it's October, isn't it? But I'm going to be checking, chatting to you about whether I can make it there, because that sounds awesome. Now, presumably there'll be, if someone's interested in that, there'll be a link or something like that they can check out on that.
If they go to feastexperiences.us, that just feastexperiences.us, that will give you the website. From that website, there is a link, and that link will take you through to like a expression of interest form.
Yeah.
And that expression of interest form, because one of the things that we're really mindful about, just like choosing great people, if you're a designer and you're designing for people, choosing great people, we want a group of people that has harmony. This isn't about just filling seats. This is actually about creating something where we get tapestry and texture, and we can bring those things together and personality to create something magical that will change each and every one's outlook on design and food and amazing accommodation as well.
Yeah. Okay. So check that out.
Yep.
The final thing I'm interested in, you only do 4 or 5 projects a year.
Yep.
You talked about, you've got to work with the right type of clients, because that determines how successful you can be and how much you give. You can give a huge amount to the right type of people. And then there's probably people who aren't a good fit for you. We've talked a lot about
I'm
that.
sure there are.
Yeah. Well, for all of us, we're all in business, and there's some clients who are, take us higher, and some who are hard to work with. But what sort of clients are a good fit for you, and what sort of clients aren't a good fit for you?
Oh, great question, Richard. Let's start with the ones who are a good fit, and then we'll maybe had a couple of highlights of ones that haven't been a good fit.
That'll be fun, yeah.
So good fit, first of all, is that they are happy to go on a journey of discovery of design. So we have a process that we start out with, what we call a design discovery, which is understanding a bit about their project and understanding what they're trying to get to, and seeing what they're like personality-wise. So I'm obviously an extroverted personality. With that doesn't mean I only work with extroverted people. It often means I work with introverted people, but understanding how process-orientated they are and how they will need things delivered to them. So we have a process to everything we do, so that something that we've learned, thank you, is if they don't follow our process, then we're following theirs. Our one was the one that was guaranteed for an outcome that we knew would be good for them.
That's right, yeah.
Theirs could be any number of, turns and twists and an absolute mess. So with that, in an elevated experience, I go, are they going to be, and I'm going to use the word coachable, and I don't think we're not coaching them, but are they going to be able to come on a journey down a process? And for sometimes it's going to be how much information will they want at each point. Somebody who's got a very process-driven brain will want a higher level of information, and others will want just the top end details. You know, designing a home for somebody is, they really are going into this massive level of trust and connection. So getting that right is really important. So number one, that's what we're looking for in a client. Can we have an easy conversation? Can we have a hard conversation? Can we pull each other's legs? Can we have a laugh?
Right.
We're going to be hanging out together for a reasonable period of time. Are they going to make themselves available for that time?
Right.
What's their schedule look like?
Right.
How vulnerable are they going to be when we start talking about the emotional floor plan, so that we can really deliver to them? So we're testing those waters with our design
Right.
discovery, as well as a whole lot of, technical stuff. When they become a client, we look for clients that, one of my favorites is acreage homes. So we love to work on bigger blocks, partly, not always, but I love to be able to create a compound of
Right.
buildings, and
Yep.
that's me. So when people have got acreage blocks, often they're spreading their home over, and they're single stories, not always, but they're single stories, and we're creating a compound of buildings. So our garages might be separated, we might have stables, we might have whatever, depending on that. So that's one of my loves, is thinking about this bigger picture of how it's laid out and how we create privacy and how we utilize buildings. The other would be, our other sort of niche would be waterfront homes, because they require a whole lot more in materiality. Waterfront homes get beaten by the weather a lot more. So we've got a lot of experience in that. And it is fun to work where we might have pontoons, or we might have beachfront and sand and stuff like that stretching out. And part of, I think, where that comes from me is I grew up in the country in New Zealand. So I grew up in the Wellington region, and I spent all my holidays from when I was a young kid at Waiheke Island. And so there are hills that run into the sea everywhere. So those pieces are really tied to me. I'm a surfer. I love to hike. I love to adventure. I love to be, out in the wilderness. So I love national parks and these things. So that sings to me. And then also this thing of being around the water sings to me. So again, if that sings to a client, then we're already singing the same song, if you get what I mean. If that's their dream and it fits mine, that's a big part of finding the right client. So that part there, and then are they, I want to say realistic, and this is I think, a really harsh question to people. If you're going and talking to your lawyer or your accountant or a specialist doctor, it's their job to advise you and to educate you in what you're being advised on. They don't need to teach you to be a specialist. What they need to do is educate you in what you need to know. The biggest thing I hear from builders and architects, and you think I talk to a lot of architects and interior designers each year with the podcast, is clients, they've just got no idea what this takes. Well, how would they? I mean, seriously, how stupid's that? Our job is to look at them and talk to them and find out what level of knowledge they have, give them the tools and give them the education so that they can feel comfortable knowing that they're going to step forward. No different if you went to your doctor or your specialist and he says, well, you've got a melanoma here. What that means is I'm going to cut it out on Tuesday. Or what that means is we're going to have to attack it this way. We're going to do this. This is what you're going to have to do. This is how you're going to deal with it. This is what we can do to help you deal with it. Are we a good fit? And no different from what we're doing. So our job is to be an educator. And we can't educate everybody, but when we bring people or people come into our sphere, is how do we give them in a succinct fashion an education on what it takes, what it costs to build it, and the process we will take them through to get them there. 95% of our projects are built. And the reason for that is we engage with the builder right back at schematic conceptual design. And we work with that builder all the way through. We don't believe in going to tender. We believe in finding a match that makes the team between the designer, the builder, and the client so tight that we can all have all kinds of conversations. I always say there's the conversation and what's the pillow talk. What's the pillow talk? Because the pillow talk needs to be the piece that when it gets a bit tricky and, things aren't quite what we expect or things shift, that we can go, it can still have good pillow talk, that there's still lots of respect and lots of love in the relationship, and we can get through whatever doesn't necessarily work. Because over a 2-year process of designing and building, might be longer, may be shorter, but over that time and process, people's lives shift a lot, whether that's the client, my life, but my life will be steady because of, in the sense of we have scheduled these items in. But the client's life will change a lot in 2 years, and so can the builder's life change a lot in 2 years. So keeping that so that it's a flowing system means that we get homes built. That's probably, and I can give you a couple of examples of when disasters happen. And we a little while ago we had a client who lovely people, really, really neat people. And I would say all our clients, their dream is bigger than their budget. And if your dream isn't bigger than your budget, you probably should dream harder. It's not about dreaming into your budget. It's about dreaming. That's dreaming. It's about having a process that can take the dream and pull it back towards the budget. Because if you don't go on discovery, you don't know what you're not learning. So we've got to find that level. So anyway, we did this with this client, and the dream was huge. And I remember sitting there and saying, this is, right on the day one, this is a serious amount more than your budget. And they're like, well, how much? And I said, I don't know exactly, but if your budget's 2 million, this is at least 3 million. And it could be more. And so where do you sit with that? And they're like, well, we really want these things. And I'm like, yeah, you do really want these things. But we've got a hierarchy of wants here. And they're not all number ones. They're not all, this project won't happen without this. Anyway, they were like, yep, totally, yep, agreed. And so we still go on a journey of discovery. So we signed them up as clients. And we started on this journey of discovery. And they ended up in their lives, had a couple of major shifts. And so they came back, well, we were in constant contact, but they came back with that they really now needed something quite different from what they'd started with. And because this pressing factor was
we're all dying to know what the pressing factor was.
It was a family.
You don't want to say it.
No, I can't say it either. It was a family thing, but it was something that can't be ignored. It couldn't be ignored. And we're like, okay, cool. So we can alter the house to do it. But because it was so overwhelming for them, it became a point of them trying to take us down their process.
Right.
And us trying to pull them back constantly because they were emotionally heightened in one area. So that project, we said, look, we think that you've probably got a good year that you need to settle. And they're feeling the pressure of wanting to get it done. And we're saying, well, we actually think there's a lot of emotion over here, good pillow talk. And so we put that project on hold with them, agreed to put it on hold with them for 6 months. Well, it's been 8 months now, so we're about to pick it back up. With that was like one of those things where it totally derails. It derails our cash flow, it derails our design journey, and it derails their design journey in their life. And we'll pick that project back up and we'll get it all back happening. But things like that are where you go, I could see that the pressure of the situation was changing their outcome. And it was very personal, so that's why I can't tell you the story, but very, very personal thing. It wasn't about finances or anything else, but to get the thinking right to do it. So I was the one who called the pause on the project, not them. They would have probably tried to push forward, but it would have been a disaster. We had to come back to the
life was moving around so much and so unstable. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I pulled from this, the question was, if we can remember way back then, is what are the type of people, what are the type of people that you take on?
Yep.
And what I heard you say was, well, we work with, we look for great people. And basically, what is a great person? Well, it's people that we can work with,
yes,
that fit with us and who would resonate with us, because we're going to be in this for a couple of years at least. And we need to know that we can have fun conversations. We also need to know we can have the tough conversations with you, and we're all still going to be happy, because we need to have those. So, we want great people we can work with. The second one is people who are open-minded to some of the X factor methods that you use that create the magic. So, open-minded to having conversations around emotional floor plans and, and what do you really want from this project, and why do you want this project? So having conversations that are a little deeper than some of the superficial, we want a modern home that's white. I know you take people way deeper in that, and you learn about people. The third thing I took was you want people who follow your process, because you do have a process, and the process is part of why you win the awards, why people are so happy with the homes. This isn't your first, to use a Stetson term, this is not your first rodeo.
No.
And so they've got to trust that when when you do something with Adrian, you hire him, you hire his process, and the process is as well as the X factor that Adrian brings, but the process has a lot of X factor in it too. So that's number 3. And then number 4, their dreams. Yep, dream big. These people have big dreams and they want to achieve something amazing, but at the same time, they are flexible and adaptable to modify those dreams so that it fits within a realistic budget ultimately.
Yeah.
So dream big, and then it gets compressed into what it really needs.
They don't have to, Richard, be just big projects. We'll take small projects for people. Sure. It just depends on what the project is based on who they are. So if they've got a small project and it's not this big, brand new home or something like that, it's a renovation of an existing space, or it might be an addition to, we'll look at those projects without a doubt. We have those projects as well as we have, the new build home. I often, actually, a good friend of both of ours, Richard Petrie, he made this point to me about sustainability. So Richard's an architect in England, and he said the most sustainable home is the one that's already built. And I love the jigsaw puzzle of a renovation and additions. And what can we keep if it's got value? What can we keep and modify? A house shouldn't be built for 50 years. It should be built for hundreds of years. Think of Europe, where they're built for hundreds of years, and it will change and alter probably every 25 to 35 years, or between 25 and 50 years, it will be changed and altered to bring us up to speed with how people live through that time and what modern things can be brought to a property. So what we want to do is create homes that can last the test of time. And that might be one that already might be 100 years old when we start working on it. How do we work with that to take it into the future? An example would be we're doing a farmhouse at the moment where there is a farmhouse already, and we're extending it and adding additions to it, but right down to mobility additions as well, for not them aging in place, but for their grandparent or for their parents who will come and be part of that family life that happens in that farmhouse. And so the house is certainly not suited for them in any way now, but we are creating additions and reconfiguring of floor plan and flow to create that, so that we've got this one level of mobility access that brings that whole extended family from grandchildren to children, to parents, to grandparents together in one amazing space. They won't all be there always at the same time, but they will be there at the same time at some points. So this is, that's the joy of working that out. And we're elevating an existing structure by doing it. It's like fantastic.
So who's not a good fit for you?
I would say people that are wanting to make drama or be stressed.
Right.
There's enough moving parts in the process already that we need to get through, that we don't want people who are drama.
Drama queens who get some spice out of life by creating drama. I know some people like that.
Yep. People who don't pay their invoices would be another great one. I'll give you the example on that. We've got, several customers over the years who are really slow payers. So that affects our cash flow. So that means we take another job, and that means their job slows down.
Right.
So if they're not bad people, they're just lousy payers. And it doesn't mean they don't pay. It just means that they're really slow. So they'll put us in the 90-day column or the 60-day column.
Yeah.
Take another job. They no longer can remain our 100% priority. If we're taking 4 or 5 jobs in a year, they can't remain in that sector. They have to push out. So, and poor communicators would be another one. People who...
Or lazy communicators.
Yeah. We don't want to be talking to them every day. We want to be having a reasonable amount of conversation with them as required. But we don't want to be living in their pocket. What we do want is, as things shift and change for them in their life, that they're communicating it with us. And if they, we don't get it right all the time in the discovery process. That's why it's a discovery process. In fact, every house we draw could be built, but it shouldn't be, because it's not attuned to the person. We're discovering the people who are going to live in it. So whilst we could build the one that we first draw, that isn't the answer. The answer is how do we discover how they would move around it. If you went to buy a car and you said, well, I'm going to buy a Mercedes-Benz, to be an example, you could be buying from an A class to an S class, and the dollars spent would configure some of that story. The other part that would really configure that story would be what my needs are and how they're going to be met by this vehicle. How will that happen? And so we are playing between an A class and an S class and taking people. So we're in a quality product, but we're taking people through this journey where they say, oh, we could be in a C class station wagon, or we need to be in a transporter van type style. Whatever it is what we're trying to find for them within their brand awareness and our brand awareness of who they are and what that needs to bring. So people who go, I want the S class for the price of a Toyota Corolla, or I want the S class features out of a Toyota Corolla. We can't magic that together, not even about price. Those things won't exist in the other space. So those people who are realistic about that, and some people just aren't, and some people have never experienced either end of the spectrum to understand where they are in that spectrum either. So,
but they have to be open-minded to being.
They have to be open-minded to do it. So,
here's what you're asking for. Here's your budget. We have to find a way to bring it together, and you can't just say, well, I'm not moving. That's what I want. That's my budget. If you can't do it,
and I'll find somebody else.
We'll find someone who can.
Quickly go and find them, please.
Yeah, and if
our work here is done,
let me know. That's right. Yeah.
Well, what I say to those people is I go, look, we've got some amazing resources on our website. We've got our project planning pack. They've had a discussion with me. They could do a design discovery, maybe, if that could be where we find that out with them. All those things will add value to the next point of their process. We are not interested in selling design discovery meetings to people to get to that. However, if it's the way that it gets them there, then that might be the outcome. It might be how it happens.
Okay, final question. What do you love most about what you do?
Oh, yeah, great question. Two things. The people is really a huge part.
Yep.
Discovering people and unearthing their loves and wants and desires and pieces like that's huge. And then the other that I love is the jigsaw of pulling that complexity together into a built structure. At home I've got a shower that's got 3 glass walls, and that is, my wife often looks at me standing in there with it all steamed up, drawing on the walls with my finger as I'm trying to work out the complexity of the land shape, the home, the way they want to live, where I can position things, what will happen with the light, the wind, the noise, all these things. She's like, would you turn off that hot water? I'm like, yeah. Well, give me a minute.
I don't want to lose the steam on the.
Yeah, that's it. But it locks it in here. And then I go and I start to draw it with pencil. But it's just that jigsaw of taking emotions, built structure, land, conditions, weather, light, all those things, and going, what would be the most creative play I can do with this within a budget? That's what makes me get up in the morning. That's the fun part.
And that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, look, there are some people in life who suck energy out of you. I've known you for the last 7 or 8 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And you're definitely a person who, every time I finish talking to you, I feel more energized. So you're an energy giver. And I imagine I'd like to do a project with you one day. We might be doing one down here where I am in a couple of years' time, and that would be really fun to
do. Yeah.
It would be amazing. And but I imagine that not just the outcome, but the journey would be a lot of fun as well. So that's probably part of the secret to your success is people get to enjoy the journey as well as the destination. So
that was one of the big things with the tour is how do we give that? How do we give? Yeah. And they go away with this fabulous connection with all things design and other people and them, themselves. How do we fill them up?
Okay. So no doubt, if we'll leave some links. We talked about the tour. We talked about great design. We talked about all sorts of things. So there'll be some links below or somewhere on this page where you'll be able to get in touch with Adrian, have a chat with him if you want to, or click the link to the tour. Maybe if they want to talk to you about the tour, they can get hold of you. So
100%.
And that's it. That's brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing all your insights and wisdom and knowledge and funness with us. And I look forward to catching up with you in person.
Absolutely, Richard. Looking forward to it, man. Can't wait. It'd be good to sit back and have a cup of tea together.